Alright, buckle up because today's video is going to be one of my favorite topics, and that is cybersecurity interview prep. In other words, how to ace your next cybersecurity interview. We'll be going over the 3 types of cybersecurity interview questions that you need to prepare for, my new cybersecurity interview course, conducting your own mock interviews and practice questions, as well as how to improve your overall cybersecurity interview performance over time. Cybersecurity interview prep is a skill that you can learn, that you can take with you throughout your cybersecurity career, that will help you get the opportunities that you want as you grow in your cybersecurity career. Alright, with that, I want to start off with a bit of my interview background. I've been on both sides of the cybersecurity interview as an interviewee, basically interviewing for cybersecurity analysts, cybersecurity engineering roles, as well as on the interviewer side, aka interviewing other cybersecurity candidates from those in their early career and even for roles that were more senior than my role. So I'll also be sharing little nuggets of wisdom that I've personally seen in the cybersecurity interviewing space and what can really help you stand out as a candidate. If you're currently in the cybersecurity job market, then interview prep is really one of the most important things. After you've gotten everything else done out of the way, including your resume, LinkedIn, networking, and basically everything leading up to the cybersecurity interview. So what exactly are the 3 types of cybersecurity interview questions that you have to prepare for? Let's start off with the most basic, which are behavioral and technical interview questions. I would say this category is relatively the same for most roles in tech. Behavioral, you've probably already heard of, which is exactly what it sounds like. Tell me about a time when you did XYZ. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Basically questions that dig into your experience that don't necessarily have to be technical, but it usually revolves around problem solving, how you work with your peers, how you work with teammates, as well as seeing overall how you perform on a day-to-day basis and potentially even working under stress. Apologies in advance for the windiness outside, just in case the wind is catching in the mic. Technical cybersecurity interview questions are a bit simpler. So these are the technical questions that could be answered within a few sentences in a few minutes. Things like, what port is HTTPS? What is asymmetric versus symmetric encryption? Can you define a DDoS attack and how to prevent them? These types of questions are typically going to be the type where you know it or you don't. For example, if someone asks you the port number for HTTPS, if you don't know it, then it's not really something that you can just guess out of your head unless you've previously already seen it before. These questions are pretty straightforward and easier to answer compared to security design questions, which are the 3rd type of cybersecurity interview questions that I would really recommend you spending a lot more time preparing for. And by the way, if you're currently looking for a cybersecurity bootcamp, the one that I recommend is the Springboard Cybersecurity Bootcamp. And the best part is that they have a get a job or get your money back guarantee if you qualify. And right now they're also offering my audience $1,000 off using my code with Sandra when you apply for the bootcamp. That has a comprehensive technical cybersecurity curriculum for anyone who is just starting out as a beginner. You don't need any previous experience in cybersecurity or in tech. They also provide career resources. You can learn more about the Springboard Cybersecurity Bootcamp and sign up for more information using the link in my description. Nowadays, even for entry-level cybersecurity roles, it's not as simple as answering the behavioral and technical interview questions. Oftentimes, even from my experience interviewing for early career cybersecurity analyst roles, security design interviews have become more and more common based on what I've seen. So this is something I discuss much more further in detail in my cybersecurity interview prep mastery course. But essentially, a security design interview question is going to be something that is very open-ended and broad. For example, how would you secure a web application? This question can be answered in many different ways, and you can basically give your answer based on the experience and the skill set that you currently have. For example, if you're going into cybersecurity, but maybe you prefer to specialize in network security, then you would probably answer this question from a network security perspective or a network engineering perspective, while someone else who is interested in vulnerability management or pen testing, maybe something that is more so focused on offensive security, they may answer it in a completely different way than you would. And that is the beauty of security design questions, because not only does it test your baseline knowledge, but it also gives you a chance to show off your thinking skills, your problem solving skills, how you communicate with teammates, as well as how you work together with a team as you're presented with a problem. This type of question, I personally think, is one of the best ways to emulate what it could really look like as you're working in a cybersecurity analyst role in your early career, because you get an idea of what it's like to go back and forth in a conversation with the teammates, aka in this case, your interviewer, and basically walking through a problem that you're solving together. So not only does it test your technical aptitude, but it also tests your communication skills and just overall whether or not your interviewer would be interested in working with you based on how you answer this question. And of course, not to mention the fact that this question can be expanded with follow-up questions. For example, if you bring up WAFs or web application firewalls, then that could lead down a different type of rabbit hole based on what the interviewer is trying to gauge, as well as the level of expertise that they can evaluate based on the answers that you give. So as you can see, this type of question is a question that I personally recommend practicing the most for. And I also think it gives you a lot of practice when you actually go on the job, because your days as a security analyst or a cybersecurity professional are typically going to look like this, where you're presented a problem and you're talking it through with your teammates and coming up with the best, most secure solution based on the information and the background that you have. And in my interview prep mastery course, I'll go over all the resources that you need to prepare for the security design interview question, as well as, of course, technical and behavioral interview questions for cybersecurity professionals. Whether you're looking for a cybersecurity full-time role or a cybersecurity internship, I think that this will be really helpful for anyone who is currently in the cybersecurity job market and looking for that first role in cybersecurity, or even if you're just in your early career. The course also contains 2 cybersecurity mock interviews, one which is an example of me personally going through a cybersecurity interview, and then the second one will be your own mock interview to give you an idea of what to expect. You'll also receive all of my cybersecurity interview prep resources, career guides, roadmaps, as well as resume and cover letter templates. You can learn more about my interview prep mastery course using a link in my description. But first, I'd like to thank Keeper for sponsoring today's video. With cyber attacks grabbing headlines daily, we all know how important it is to protect our accounts. But staying secure online can be a hassle. That's where the sponsor of today's video comes in, Keeper Security. Keeper helps you create and store hyper-strong passwords, passphrases, and passkeys for all of your accounts. Keeper will autofill your credentials and even your multi-factor authentication codes, so you don't have to spend your time searching for the right password or pulling out your phone for an authentication code. And Keeper doesn't just store credentials. You can also store everything from credit cards to your passport and even notes and files directly on the Keeper app. Your data is protected with military-grade encryption and available on any device, from your phone to your laptops and tablets. So make your life easier with Keeper and get 50% off using my code with Sandra. You can also try Keeper completely free with a 30-day free trial. Thank you again to Keeper for sponsoring today's video, and let's get back to the rest of the topics. Let's talk more about the importance of mock interviews. So when I was just starting out in my cybersecurity career, I was the quietest person in the room. I personally did not like talking very much. I didn't like presenting. If you asked me a question, I would try my best to answer in as few sentences as I could. And I'm sure those that I've talked to in my early career can vouch for this, and not necessarily in the best way. But I will say that practice makes perfect, especially as you grow in your career and as you come out of your shell. And that is why I recommend everyone to do mock interviews before they go into that first cybersecurity interview. Mock interviews are exactly what it sounds like. It's basically a fake interview that you're doing, whether it be online, using my cyber interview course, or even just with a friend or a mentor. You essentially can create your own cybersecurity interview questions, come up with maybe 5 to 7 questions, and then a security design interview question, and then time yourself, record it, watch it back, and give yourself evaluations based on your performance. I know it's not the most natural to talk to a camera, and obviously that's what I'm doing right now, but just remember that most of the interviews nowadays, if it's first round or second round, are likely going to be over Zoom compared to back then, where when I was interviewing in college, many of my interviews were in person, especially when it came to final round interviews and super days. But post 2020, times have really changed, and you typically aren't going to have an in-person interview unless it's going to be the final round. And even then, for many companies, that can also be online. This makes mock interviews even more valuable because you're getting comfortable speaking directly to a computer screen or a phone screen while you're recording yourself as if you were speaking on a Zoom call with someone else. There are also services that you can find online for a relatively low price. For example, I previously used Fiverr, and you can find cybersecurity professionals on there who have mock interview services that will basically be open to doing a mock interview with you, coming up with their own cybersecurity interview questions, and going through a 30-45 minute interview with you to give you an idea of what it's like. And doing it that way can also give you an idea of how you'll perform while interviewing with a complete stranger. And that, I think, is a really great gauge, because if you're personally just interviewing with your phone or your tablet, then you may not feel the same type of pressure as interviewing with someone else. But of course, a good middle ground is if you're just gonna go through a mock interview with a family member or a close friend. So basically, get at least 1 or 2 mock interviews under your belt before you go into the real interview, because you never know how you're going to perform. And one of the things I see often is the fact that you can go through 50, 100, 200 cybersecurity interview prep questions online or sample interview questions. There are many lists that you can find, but speaking out the answer, congregating all of your thoughts into one coherent, cohesive answer that makes sense for a technical or behavioral question is very different from just seeing a question online and thinking, I know what encryption is, I don't have to think or formulate my answer. Trust me, when you're doing an interview and you may be a bit nervous, you may be a bit frazzled, it can be harder to find your words than you may think. So again, mock interviews are your key. And of course, the next thing is what I just mentioned, which is practice cybersecurity questions. I have a pretty big list of hundreds of cybersecurity interview prep questions using my interview prep study guide. But you can find a lot of questions online. You can also ask ChatGPT to create you a list of common cybersecurity interview questions. So there's abundance of this information out there. And what I would do is go through at least 50 to 100 of them so you can get an idea of the types of technical questions that you can expect to get during a cybersecurity interview. So this kind of prep is mostly for the technical and behavioral cybersecurity interview questions rather than for security design, but it'll also help give you an idea of the range of types of questions that interviewers may ask you. It could be on network security, it could be on operating systems, it could be on GRC, defensive security, or offensive security. So you never know what the interviewer is going to ask you. And that is why for these types of you know it or you don't type questions, you really want to know at least 80 to 90% of the topics based on the most common types of questions. This will give you the best chance to make it forward to the second round or the final round cybersecurity interviews. And as you go further on in the interview stage, your interviewers will typically get more and more senior based on my experience. Typically, your recruiter is going to give you some insight into who your interviewer is, specifically around their name and their title. So at least using that information, you can also decide what you should prepare for, because typically someone who is more senior, maybe they're a manager or a VP, isn't going to be asking you the deep in the weeds technical questions that an engineer or an analyst level person is going to ask you. And their types of questions may be more behavioral, but they may also dig deeper into the types of technical experience and projects that you've previously had experience working in. So always keep these things in mind. Interviewing is really more of an art than a science, and there's no way to be 100% prepared for every cybersecurity interview question that they may throw at you. Your goal is to get as prepared as you can using the limited amount of time that you have between interviews. And of course, as you start growing and going further in your career, completing more cybersecurity interviews for more senior positions, you're going to get much more comfortable interviewing for cybersecurity roles, and it'll be a lot easier for you to then go on and prepare for interviews if you find yourself in the job market in the future. So it's basically a skill that you stack on top of and continuously learn so that you improve over time. All right, so that is it for this video. Let me know if you guys have any other questions. Hopefully this gave you the steps for what to prepare and how to start prepping for your next cybersecurity interviews so you can get that first job in cybersecurity. My cybersecurity interview prep mastery course is also open for enrollment, so definitely check that out if you're currently in the job market. I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback once you complete the course and start utilizing the things that you've learned in your real life interviews. Don't forget that you can get 50% off Keeper Password Manager using my code WithSandra off personal and family plans, and you can learn more about how Keeper can keep you secure online using a link in my description. Let me know if you have any other interview prep questions. I would love to answer them, and this again is one of my favorite areas does in cybersecurity, because I do believe that cybersecurity interview prep is definitely a skill that you can learn that'll help you for the rest of your career. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, I post videos weekly, and hopefully I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.